Hi. Hi and welcome to another video on the channel Fix Your Mercedes. In this video, we're going to be talking about the EZL ignition module on the engine M119. I don't remember, I really don't, when I have promised to whom. I really don't know that I'm going to do this video, but please, if you're watching this video, then please forgive me. Forgive me for this delay, but I had a lot of business, I had a lot of stress, not to speak about that. We want to stay positive. Only concerning one thing not. We must be negative. And, well, this much I knew, this much I can tell you about that. It's going to be a bare theory, let's say it like that, because this is 500E, and believe me, in my country, it's very, very, very hard to find that car. So, let's go to the video. Shall we? So, speaking about the things that have to be taken in consideration are the sensors. On the EZL ignition module for the M119 engines, we have to take in consideration knock sensor, the coolant temperature sensor, the crankshaft position sensor, the camshaft position sensor, the electronic accelerator, then the ignition control module. We have spark plugs, the distributor cap, the transmission overload protection switch, ignition coils, 2 of them, and X11 diagnostic socket. So, the whole thing looks like this. We have number 15, which is ignition on, that comes from the battery positive. Number 30. And that's our voltage supply. We have ground, number 31, front left fender, that's our ground. We have the crankshaft position sensor that has to give us the RPM signal and to tell us the position of the crankshaft. The camshaft position sensor, it has to do cylinder 1 recognition for anti-knock control. We have intake pressure, that's the engine load, as well as altitude correction. We have resistor trimming plug, R16/2, ignition maps. We have transmission overload protection switch, that's the retraction during shifting. We have knock sensors, the timing readjustment during knock combustion. We have the ECU LH, the ECU EA, as well as the ECU ABS, traction control data exchange between CAN bus, and the task of the EZL is to create dual angle adjustment. This dual angle adjustment manages ignition coils. It has to create RPM signal for the ECU LH, the synchronization signal for injection order, as well as for the ECU LH. The EZL saves a permanent code which is being displayed on the X11/4 code reader with 38 pins. The EZL has two ignition coils for each of the cylinder blocks. There are two ignition maps, one for the CAT and one for the non-CAT version. The codes which appear while the engine is on can be read with a code reader. If the code appears during more than 8 engine starts in the row, it is being saved after stalling the engine, and it can be read with a pulse counter. If no code appears, then it is being erased after a couple of engine starts. The same moment, only the codes are being saved that either prevent engine start or they have a strong influence on engine running. The code memory is not being erased if the battery is unplugged. The memorized codes can be read at the X11/4 code reader. To do this, the engine must be off and ignition on. The actuator at the throttle body precedes both the signal for idle as well as for the wide open throttle to the ECU electronic accelerator or to the ECU cruise control or idle speed control, depending of the car options, and everything goes to the EZL ignition module. So let's look how our ignition module looks like. We have here 3-pin plug, and there we have number 1, 2, 3. Number 1 is the ground. Number 2, knock sensor 1 for left engine block, and knock sensor 2 for the right engine block. We have the coaxial plug for the leads from the crankshaft position sensor. We have resistor trimming plug R16/2. We have vacuum connection. We have two groups, Group A and Group B, with 8-pin plug. So let's look how the A group looks like. Number 1 is the ignition coil T1/2, clamp 1. Number 2 is the ground. Number 3 is the ignition on. Number 4, TN signal. Number 5, sensor cylinder recognition, ground. Number 6, ignition coil T1/1. Number 7, pulse output. And number 8, the signal for camshaft position sensor, line out. As for the group B, number 1, we have the signal camshaft position sensor, line in. Number 2, transmission overload protection switch. Number 3 and 4 are data wire. Number 5, camshaft position sensor, ground. Number 6 is our ground wire. Number 7 is free. And number 8 is the battery positive, the voltage supply. So, the EZL has 2 separate power stages that run each of the coils. The ignition coil S5/6 distributes voltage to the cylinders 1, 4, 6, 7, and the S5/5 to the cylinders 5, 8, 3, 2. The moving coil in the distributor cap is replaced by the fixed center electrode. We have the resistance trimming plug, R16. I've been talking about that. And now, we have the TN signal. Until now, we've been talking about the TD signal. So where's the difference? The EZL ignition module converts the sine signal from the crankshaft position sensor into the square wave. So, the TD signal is in the shape of a sine, and the TN in the shape of a square. Why? The transition to the square wave signal was necessary because to the field of knock adjustment, the timing can be different for each cylinder. The TN signal can be measured the exact way as the TD signal. The signal from the EZL is conducted to the ECU LH, and from there to the base module. Afterwards, we have the coolant temperature signal. This signal comes from the coolant temperature sensor. It goes to the ECU LH, and from there through the CAN bus to the EZL. Now, something about the security measures. If the coolant temperature sensor fails, the temperature of 120 degrees C is chosen. As this is boiling temperature, the timing goes for 3.5 degrees in retard. In case the load sensor in the EZL fails, the wide open throttle is being chosen in order to activate the anti-knock adjustment. If the knock sensors fail, the sensor, the EZL module, as well as the camshaft sensors, it comes to the security timing adjustment for 10 degrees in retard. And now, let's speak something about the anti-knock control. The ignition maps of the EZL are designed for the optimal power. If it comes under any circumstances to the knocking combustion, the EZL recognizes the knocking cylinder with its feature and it comes to the timing readjustment in retard in the specific cylinder. This happens usually if you pour low quality gas or if you have deposits in the combustion chamber. In order to avoid any damages on the engine which can be caused by this kind of combustion, the anti-knock control was developed and integrated as a feature in the EZL ignition module. Now look, this is the pressure curve in the combustion chamber during normal combustion. And this is the pressure curve in the combustion chamber during knocking combustion. Well, speaking about this low quality fuel, as these cars were developed, we had leaded as well as unleaded gas. I'm the witness of that time, and I know, ask me how I know about that. So, these cars are developed to give their optimal performance using 95 octane gas, which is US 91. But in case that in that time, in case you stop at a gas station where no unleaded gas could be found, then you had to pour this leaded gas and you would have to then readjust the maps. If I remember well, this leaded gas had the octane number of 86. So this is 86 European octane. So it would be, for all of you from the USA, it would be 80. So imagine now having some kind of a gas that has 80 octane number. But as we don't have that gas anymore, then this would be unnecessary to speak about the readjustment and the resistor trimming plug and so on and so on. And one more thing. While speaking in this video, I have mentioned the transmission overload protection switch. I would not speak now about this feature because I've been talking about that in a previous video about the EZL. If you haven't been watching it, you can watch it here. And there I was talking about the transmission overload protection switch, so I don't want to repeat myself. Now, let's talk something about knock sensor unit. We have knock sensors that are defined as piezoelectric structure bone noise sensors.
What?
So, it goes like this. The vibrations from the engine blocks are being transferred to the piezoceramics, and as AC voltage signal over a shielded wire lead to the EZL. The knock sensor unit consists of two knock sensors that are bunched together in one lead, and therefore they can be replaced as a unit only, not separately. And about that piezo effect, about piezo, what does it mean? So, piezo effect is being defined as voltage generated by pressure on a certain ceramic surface. The sensors are tightened under an engine mount because that's the best place to recognize knocking combustion on all cylinders. As for the camshaft position sensor, at the camshaft sprocket there are two notches disposed opposite to each other. That way, by each camshaft rotation, it comes to the cylinder recognition for the synchronization of the injection order, and in the same way for the anti-knock recognition. The synchronization of the engine order begins as the engine is being started. In order to get a strong signal while the engine is being started, there must be a clearance between the sensor and the notch. And this clearance must be between 0.4 and 0.6 millimeters. So if you, under any circumstances, have to replace the camshaft position sensor, please be careful about this clearance. The next thing we have is the catalytic converter preheating. In order to get the catalytic converter faster to the operating temperature, the exhaust gas temperature has to be increased. That's why the timing has to be readjusted in retard, while the coolant temperature is between 15 and 40 degrees C. On idle, of course, and it lasts for about 30 seconds, as the lever is in P or N position, and the RPM increased between 11 and 1200 depending on the engine temperature. As a gear is being selected, the revs drop. And the last feature we have is the torque reduction while traction control is on. So, in order to achieve instant engine torque reduction while the wheels are spinning up to the deploying of the throttle retraction, the timing is readjusted to retard for a short period during the first ASR control process if the speed exceeds 20 kilometers per hour. The control of the EZL, which is necessary for this action, comes from the ECU electronic accelerator. I'm dead. So, bye-bye. So, my dear ones, if you enjoyed this video, then please don't click the button skip ad. It is going to help me a lot. And till the next video, happy Mercedesing.